And let's just start by talking Doom, because this is a game that you just reviewed for IGN. It is out now. Of course, it's on Game Pass, but you can also purchase it on whatever platform you feel like. I'm playing on PC for this one. I've always said this. Doom is a game, like, most of the time I'll be like, yeah, I like playing on my couch with the Xbox Series X. Doom, with my history with it, I have to play it on a PC, and so I'm doing that. But Mitchell, you gave it a 9. And just, if you want to start by kind of giving us your just like top line thoughts on Doom, and then we can get into some details.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it a lot in the review, but I think the big takeaway is that Doom: The Dark Ages is it's a very different style of Doom. Like, ultimately, it is the same kind of core. You know, you're a super powered space marine guy, and you're going around blowing up demons with a huge arsenal of weapons. But every Doom game has kind of had a different kind of flavor to it. Doom 2016 was kind of like the reimagining of the run and gun. Doom Eternal just went all in on mobility and weapon juggling and all these other, really technical and very demanding kind of skill sets that you needed for that game. And Doom: The Dark Ages takes away all that mobility and instead replaces it by just making you feel like an absolute tank. You are much slower, but even though you move slower than Doom Eternal, the thing I want to convey is that this is not a slow game. You have this this shield bash that lets you instantly close the distance, basically, between you and a very far away enemy, and it allows you to zip around the battlefield, honestly, much faster than you could in Doom Eternal, because the cooldown on it is much lower than something like the Super Shotgun's little chain grapple that you used to have. So you're zipping into battle, you're hitting a couple of things with a super shotgun, you're zipping away to another area. You're just constantly moving, even though you are physically slower. The abilities that you have still allow you to travel around the battlefields very, very quickly, and those battlefields are absolutely enormous.
You're just traveling. You're traveling on the X-axis instead of the Y-axis this time, basically.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And the horizon line, just being able to look out and seeing the sheer amount of enemies that spawn in, it really paints this picture of you are at war you are literally a one-man army against an absolute legion of warriors of hell. It's just a really cool feeling to just jump right down into that and being like, okay, let's go.
Now, you're on record. We've started doing this thing that people seem to be really enjoying at the end of IGN big IGN reviews, where there's a little interview in there at the end with you and our reviews editor, Tom Marks, where you're basically kind of giving your background on the series and why you wanted to review this game. And you said that Doom Eternal is one of, if not your favorite, first-person shooters ever.
Yeah. I stand by it. I don't go back on it. No, Doom Eternal is a really special game. It is a game that is a lot of different things depending on where you at with your skill level with it. When you're first starting out and you're playing through the normal kind of difficulties or the normal equivalents, it's still a very fun, fast-paced shooter where you're using your dashes to dodge out of the way of attacks. You got to keep moving. It's very much floor is lava kind of a very much floor is lava kind of gameplay experience where you're just trying to desperately stay alive by just dashing around the arena. Once you get to the harder difficulties, then it becomes more about how am I optimizing my damage output so I can kill these really tough enemies as fast as I can, so I don't have to focus on them for a really long time. And that's where you get into the weapon juggling, the resource management, making sure that you have so many tools in that game. It's insane. You have grenades, you have chainsaws, you have a flame thrower on your shoulder. You have all these different weapons that run out of ammo very, very quickly. So you have to balance using your chainsaw on fodder enemies, but you also want to use those fodder enemies so you can, get armor if you need it. There's just a lot of different considerations to make in Doom Eternal. And as I say in that interview, the thing that I love about Doom is how it gets my brain firing at like a rapid fire pace with all the different things I have to do. And Doom Eternal does that, I think, better than any other shooter out there. And that's not to take away from Doom the Dark Ages, because it does it in a different way. But, I personally will always have Doom Eternal, probably at the pinnacle, unless something comes around and tries to dethrone what it does.
Okay, because that was my next question. Because as some listeners may remember, I reviewed Doom Eternal for us. Gosh, it's been 5 years already. How is that a half decade ago? Oh my God.
It's crazy.
Anyway, and I gave it a 9, just as you gave the Dark Ages a 9. And for me, I thought Eternal was a better game than Doom 2016, a game I also very much loved. So it sounds like for you, the order of the 3 modern Dooms would go Eternal, Dark Ages, 2016. Is that fair to say?
I haven't thought about it too deeply. I feel like I'm owed another. I owe Doom 2016 another replay, because it's the game that I've played through, the least recently. But yeah, like my gut tells me that that's probably true. But that, not to take anything away from Doom 2016, I love that game. I booted it up just to play the first 2 levels. I will say Doom 2016 has the best intro of any of the Doom games. And I would go so far to say that I think Doom 2016 has one of the best intros of any video game I've ever played. Just like the whole thing of like waking up, just like you immediately feel cool in that game.
Yeah.
And like, the way that you slowly walk into the elevator, you hear Samuel Hayden in your ear, and then you just like, when you like punch the elevator screen, and then the logo comes up. And then the rock music that plays after that, it gives me chills every time.
Yeah. The id Software, man, that I really appreciate, and I may have said this, I did our hands-on preview. You, of course, just did the review of the full game. I really appreciate that id Software and Hugo Martin and the team there didn't just do the typical sequel thing of taking Eternal and then layering more stuff on it. Mm-hmm. I like that it's a different game. And maybe some people won't like the Dark Ages as much as Eternal necessarily. But like you were saying, I do like that as a old man at this point, who, for me, the original Doom in 1993, it's between Doom 93 and Super Mario Brothers 3 as to what my one favorite, if you made me pick one favorite game of all time, it's one of those 2. Like, Doom meant the world to me at the time, and I've continued to play it. Like, I still, every now and again, I'll just fire up Doom, because now it's like you can play it on Xbox. I've got that new whatever that kind of Ultra edition they just put out on PC and stuff. So it's like still there for me, and I still love playing it. And what I love about the Dark Ages, and Hugo told me this in an interview that's on IGN if you want to listen to it, is that he went back and played Doom 1 again, and that the Dark Ages is very heavily inspired by that, which, for the reasons that you pointed out, it really is apparent when you play, because it's, like we were saying, it's all X-axis, because in the original Doom, you couldn't even look up and down, let alone jump. So it's X-axis gameplay, tons of enemies on the screen at a given time, because I feel like whether it was partially a technology thing as 3D gaming evolved, or what, or a design choice, or both, but as first-person shooters have evolved from 2D to 3D over the years, I feel like it's fair to say that the enemy count on screen went down a lot over the years, right? And again, maybe that was sort of a technology bottleneck. We're definitely not in that era anymore, because we have so much horsepower on whether it's your console or PC. And I love that the Dark Ages just throws dozens of guys at you at a given time, and, like you said, makes you feel cool enough by giving you the power to dispatch a lot of them very quickly. Mm-hmm. It's the power fantasy of the Dark Ages is just so good. And I don't know, Mitchell, if either one of us can come up with another first-person shooter on the market right now that does that fulfills that power fantasy as well as Doom does?
I mean, I would say that when I was playing this, one of the first things that came to my mind was that this was Doom by way of Serious Sam.
I can see that.
It also has, the very large environments. It also has a lot of enemies that kind of rush towards you in the same way. But it's different. This is still very much a Doom game. It's just, it's a new kind of twist on it. And I agree with you. I think, I don't think I wanted id to go and make another Doom Eternal with just stuff added on top of Doom Eternal. I think Doom Eternal and the DLC for it were kind of like as far as it could have pushed that concept.
I agree.
Like
the DLC was tough. I mean, not for pros like you, but for normals like me.
People overhype my skills a little bit. Like these games are still hard for me. I'm very persistent, and I try to really figure out how to, use my tools to make myself better at a game. But Doom, the Old Gods, that's what it was called, right?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
like that also was like 4 years ago.
They really pushed you, and I think what it comes down to is that Doom Eternal really demanded a lot from the player, especially on the harder difficulties. I think Doom: The Dark Ages still demands a lot from the player, but the amount of things are less. Like the amount of tools that you have are less than what you had in Doom Eternal. But it is still pretty demanding in terms of knowing your parry timings, knowing the weaknesses of certain enemies, and just being able to use your shield to its fullest potential. And also, I think one of the things that it is probably one of the best in the business at is weapon upgrades, and making weapon upgrades meaningful enough to make you want to to give you a reason to switch back to a weapon that you might not be using otherwise. Like once you get a rocket launcher, if you have a lot of ammo with your rocket launcher, why would you use, an assault rifle? And the reason is because, well, the assault rifle is better at different things. You can hit from farther away, and once you have upgrades into it, it can also do the same kind of splash damage that a rocket launcher can. So I think that's one of the things that it does really, really well. They encourage you to get upgrades, which thereby encourages you to explore, which also encourages you to swap weapons, because each weapon has a different kind of, different advantages and disadvantages, I guess.
So as you stated in the review, you played on Nightmare difficulty.
I did.
I am not doing
People don't believe me, but I swear to God, I played on Nightmare difficulty.
They should believe you. But what I wanted to get at, you kind of hinted at that you're sort of getting at this in what you were just saying, but I'm not done with the game, actually, even close. I think I'm on chapter 7 or 8, something like that. So I'm not even halfway through, but I'm a decent bit into it. And I would say my take playing so far is it feels not as difficult as Eternal was. Now, maybe it ramps, or maybe like my skills built from Eternal have now made Dark Ages feel a little easier. But what would you say to that based on your experience? Would you agree that it's overall maybe not quite as tough? And we can get into the customizability of the difficulty, because that is definitely a thing that it offers everybody. But what would you say to that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely easier than Eternal. I don't remember how hard Doom 2016 was, but it's definitely easier than Eternal. When I don't think I have a good time with Eternal on Nightmare, to be honest. I've done it, and I've gotten pretty far into it, but Ultraviolence is my happy place with Doom Eternal. I think that's kind of the right balance for me in terms of being challenging and without feeling like I'm just throwing myself against a wall. But Doom: The Dark Ages, I think, is the Nightmare difficulty on Doom: The Dark Ages, to me, is the equivalent of Ultraviolence on Doom Eternal. And it just again comes down to that whole thing of like the amount that Eternal expects of the player is less than what Doom: The Dark Ages expects of the player. I think that just kind of naturally brings down the difficulty a little bit.
And I wonder if this was intentional on id Software's part or not, knowing that their console audience has been growing in this modern era of Doom. Obviously, Doom started as a PC-only franchise, but has become a multi-platform franchise, and it shipped on everything day one here for Dark Ages, just as it did for Eternal. But I wonder if the X-axis-ness of the Dark Ages was in part driven by wanting to be a little bit more gamepad friendly, even though you and I were playing this particular one with a mouse and keyboard, because that's just how you got to do it with Doom. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's not really a question that I'm asking you. It's just kind of a thought that arises, is because they've removed the y-axis mostly out of the game. I wonder if they wanted to make it a little bit more of a gamepad friendly experience this time around.
Well, it definitely is. And I think a lot of that also comes down to, a lot of people say that, the mouse is what causes, Doom to be so much more playable on PC. For me, it's actually the keyboard, because Doom is a game that has you swapping between so many weapons, just on the fly. And, on the keyboard, you can just press one. I know that 1 is my shotgun, 2 is my assault rifle, 3 is my plasma rifle. And I can go between those weapons very, very quickly. Whereas on a keyboard, on a controller, I kind of have to rely on that radial menu, which slows down time. It just kind of slows down the flow of the game.
Right.
So because you're swapping much less than in Doom Eternal, because ammo is much more plentiful, and if you really like a weapon, you can stick with that weapon. You can just, punch an enemy, get a bunch of ammo for it immediately. So you don't have to switch your weapons quite as much as you did in Doom Eternal, which I think just by itself makes it a lot more controller friendly.
So 9 out of 10, you loved it. You called it amazing. It's on Game Pass. It's another great game shipped by under the Xbox umbrella, another great thing that's going straight to Game Pass. Where, I guess, to finish up on Doom, Mitchell, before we talk about Elden Ring Nightreign, where do you think id goes from here? Like, now that they've done these kind of three, like you phrased it, 3 distinct flavors of Doom, like where do you go from here if you're id?
Well, I heard Hugo in an interview, it might have been your interview, but he said that he would be happy making Doom games for like the rest of his life.
Yeah, he did that. That was in mind. Yeah, he did say that. And Marty also said that they're absolutely going to keep making Doom games, and that's kind of what leads me to that question of like, okay, if we're staying on the Doom track, where do we go from here?
We kind of ended my review discussion with a little joke from Tom saying like, well, I guess the end goal for all video games is just to become Devil May Cry. And I kind of laughed it off. I'm like, yeah, that would make me a really happy person. But there is an indie shooter called Ultra Kill that is still in early access that takes the Devil May Cry inspirations to like another level for first person shooters. And I would love to see Doom do something along those lines. Just give me a bunch of unique abilities that I can do. Give me like, instead of weapon juggling, meaning juggling my weapons and swapping between weapons really quickly, make weapon juggling mean juggling enemies with weapons. I want to be able to use a shotgun, shoot an enemy that's in the air, make them bounce up, switch to another weapon, keep them in the air, then jump up, slam them down. That's what I want out of a Doom game. And if they could make that happen, make it about the style and the creative expression of combat,
yeah,
I would be a very happy boy.
Well, for now, I'm definitely happy with Doom: The Dark Ages. This has been one of my most anticipated games of the year, especially now that, as suspected, we are not getting Grand Theft Auto 6 this year. I'm not sure if there's honestly another game that we know of for 2025 that I'm looking forward to as much as I was Doom, and now I'm playing Doom, and I am having a great time with it. So, great review, Mitchell. Thank you so much for plowing through it on Nightmare difficulty and putting together a great review for IGN. Another game that's not ready to be reviewed quite yet. We've got our last push of preview in the form of our exclusive month that we do. Most months we do them as much as we can. So our game for May, our IGN First game for May, is Elden Ring Nightreign. You took a trip over to Japan, got to what I hope is maybe check off a career bucket list of getting to visit FromSoftware as big a Souls-like fan as I know you are. But
definitely a bucket list item.
I've got some of those too. Like the first time I got to go to id Software, that was a huge check that one off. Like I'd always wanted to. I'll tell you the quick mini story. The first time I was at id Software was for Return to Castle Wolfenstein for the original Xbox. I mean, they put it out on PC as well, but they did like a specific original Xbox version. And id wasn't even making it. Nerve Software made it, but the demo was at id because I guess id was kind of driving the bus. They were like producing the game. But anyway, I got to go to id. So this was like 2003. And so when all the original guys were still there, or most of them, and they were giving me a tour. And this was, I don't even remember what time of day it was. I guess it might have been just during the day. And I walked by, like just seeing all the cool, like they've got a bunch of the original models from the original Doom that they like digitized into the game. So like stuff like that's super cool. But then when on the tour, they're walking me down a hallway and like I look in one room and it's John Carmack's office, and it's pitch black. He's got the lights out, and it's just like the silhouette of the back of his head, and he's just coding, like he's just doing Carmack things. And I did get to interview Carmack later down the road, but that was pretty cool. It's like, oh, look, he's Carmacking. He's just doing his thing. So, yeah, I totally relate on bucket list developer visits. But Elden Ring Nightreign, it's a very different, talk about different flavors of Doom. This is a different flavor of Elden Ring compared to the game that pretty much swept all the Game of the Year awards 3 years ago. So I guess I'll ask you this. What have you kind of learned about Nightreign that you maybe didn't expect or didn't know going, because you'd already played in like the network test. You'd already checked out the game, but what did going to the studio kind of do for you with regard to Nightreign?
Let's see. I would say that what kind of surprised me was how difficult, and you know, you shouldn't be surprised. Like the idea that I'm surprised by the difficulty of a FromSoft game is like kind of surprising in itself, because I've played so many of them. I know going in that it's going to be difficult, but like when I tell you that our entire first day was spent just trying to beat that Libra boss, believe me. And it wasn't from like a lack of skill or a lack of experience from of our squad. Like we were playing with someone from IGN Japan who was very good. Like I watched his footage. He wasn't a weak link. Someone who worked at Bandai Namco, who played through all of the bosses prior to us getting there. So he was supposed to be like our kind of Sherpa. And then there's me, who like Ryan gave me such a generous introduction before. Like I'm pretty decent at these games, I will say, and it still took us the whole day. Like we didn't even beat it after the first day. We had to come back the second day, come in with like an actual plan, and then we finally beat it.
Nice.
So it like that surprised me. And it's especially notable for a game like this, because if you come across a really tough boss in Elden Ring, like, it's not that big of a deal. Usually the checkpoints are just a short short run to the like the really, really tough bosses. The easier bosses might have a longer run, but the really, really tough bosses, generally, like, you just walk a couple steps, you're able to try again. With this game, what I want people to understand is that when you come across those night 3 bosses, if you lose, you have to do the whole thing over again. That's a whole 30 minutes of a pretty tough roguelike just to get another look at the boss's moves. Like that is what I think is going to be like the really highly talked about discussion point of this game, is the fact that, these are really tough bosses, and just to get another shot, you have to go through this whole roguelike thing again. And then you get to, maybe try out something new that you didn't try out the first time against that boss. So it's going to be really tough, I think. But on the flip side of that, the release that we got when we finally beat this guy that we had spent 7 hours trying to get through, it was, one of the most elated I've been, especially at like, a quote unquote press event. And, everyone in the room was like cheering for us. It felt so good.
So yeah, there was no like, let's let the media guy win so that he feels better about the game. Like, that's not how FromSoftware rolls.
And no, absolutely not. We had to work for it. And like it was, I definitely went to sleep day one, like with a nightmare, like, oh my God, what if we don't get this footage? What are we going to do? But fortunately we knocked it out on the first attempt on the second day. So it was very fortuitous.
And I will say, I want to preface this by saying it's not a complaint, because what I get to do, what Mitchell and I get to do for a living when we get to go to these game development studios and meet the people that make the games and check them out early, it's an extreme privilege. I want to preface by saying that. Mm-hmm. That said, sure. It is a little nerve-wracking when you have like the creators of the game watching you play the game. Because like if you screw up, you just feel like a complete moron. You're like, oh God. Yeah. Oh God, I'm embarrassing myself and I'm embarrassing IGN. Like, because it happens, right? Like when we get there, usually we haven't played the game before, because that's the point of like, we're going to do this big exclusive studio visit and get this exclusive content. You'd at least gotten warmed up a little bit on that network test. But yeah, it's that can be a little bit of a, and maybe that's just in my own head, and that other people that work at IGN or in games media don't feel that, but I sure do. I'm like, I always just feel them watching and judging me, and even though they're probably not judging me, but I just like, I feel it. I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as streaming, right? It's just you're streaming for an audience of the people who made the game.
Yeah, good point. So you've got, as of this recording, you've already got a bunch of stuff up on IGN, a bunch of IGN First exclusive content for Nightreign. You've got a boss reveal gameplay video that doesn't show too much, like it's not full like spoiler, but it's, gives you a good idea.
We definitely cut around some elements of that boss fight that we didn't want to spoil those, or I would say FromSoft specifically didn't want us to spoil them.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't need like some of those elements. Yeah, like we know a lot of people don't like spoiler stuff, so we always do our best to avoid it. But so you got the boss battle gameplay. You got to play the Iron Eye and Raider classes, so you've got videos and articles, like hands-on reports with those. And then today as we record this, you posted the how Limveld changes from run to run, which is a really interesting piece too. So what else have you kind of got coming up between now and, because we're only going like another week and a half, because then the game's actually out at the very, very end of the month. So we've got to get all of our IGN First stuff out of the way. What have you got coming up?
So we got a bonus, actually. We got a boss that we encountered in the lead up to the night 3 boss. Basically the way it works is that on day 1 you fight a randomized boss, on day 2 you fight a randomized boss, and then on day 3 you fight the boss that you chose when you started the run. And we happened upon a classic Dark Souls, a boss from one of the previous Dark Souls games. So we're gonna have that boss, its full entirety, coming I think later in the week.
Sweet.
We have some interviews coming, one with the director, Ishizaki-san, one with a combat designer, another with a kind of art designer, and another with the composer, who also worked on Sekiro, worked on base Elden Ring. He was the composer of I think the Promised Consort, I think it's Radahn's main theme. And then what else? Am I missing anything, Ryan?
That's a pretty good amount of stuff that you.
Yeah, we still got a good amount of stuff coming.
Yeah, so keep your eyes on IGN.com as well as our YouTube channel because I think most, if not all, of these things that Mitchell's doing have video pieces with them. So yeah, thank you, Mitchell, for taking like a week out of your life to fly all the way out to Japan and bring back a bunch of cool Elden Ring content for us.
Thank you for like being the person that sends me to these things. Like you are a dream maker, Ryan. So I very much appreciate you.
I'm doing my best. Yeah, no, it's I'll just say like this is maybe a little too inside baseball for most of our audience, but like one of the reasons that I started the whole IGN First thing, like it is 11 years ago this month. Wow. That was because our first one was we revealed Forza Horizon 2 in May of 2014. Anyway,
wow.
One of the reasons I started it, there were a lot of reasons, but one of them was that in my official Xbox magazine days, there was a game on the cover there had to be a game on the cover of the magazine every month. So most months, somebody on our team was getting to go to a development studio and just basically be the only one there. It wasn't some big media event and get to like see a new game and report on it for the magazine and talk to the developers. And I always got such a kick out of doing those for official Xbox magazine that I wanted to bring that to IGN because like the online space didn't really have that. Like in the online media space, you generally just, and this is still true to this day, you generally just have a big media event, right? It's logistically more simple for publishers and developers to just bring everybody to a space at once and have and present and maybe let them play and whatnot. So it is a nice thing, I think, with the IGN First thing that a lot of younger members of the IGN team, like yourself, who didn't ever get to work on a magazine, are now getting to go visit game development studios because it is pretty cool to get to go to some of these studios.
It is very cool.
Although, I mean, most of them are just like, visually speaking, they're kind of just offices. They're usually not like visually something to write home about, but it's getting to actually, see their space and meet the people that I always found. And I still do. I still really get a kick out of it. Like for me, like real quick, Mitchell, give me like your top 3 list of studios that you'd like to visit at some point in your career. Thanks for checking out this clip from Unlocked, IGN's weekly Xbox show. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to watch the full episode at youtube.com/IGN Games. New episodes of Unlocked drop every Thursday on IGN Games, IGN.com, and your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.